Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. Joining me to kick off today's show is a man that has a 19-2 record with 11 KOs. He's number 15 ranked IBF super middleweight contender. He goes by the nickname Soaking. He's coming off a massive upset against Mark Jeffers. That's Sean Hemphill. Sean, appreciate you for taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we have to get into your most recent fight. You obviously coming off of a massive upset. You went out to the UK and did your thing. Now that you've been able to reflect on it over the past couple of weeks now, what's going through your mind? What's your thoughts on the performance overall?
Oh man, it was a great fight, great experience.
Mm-hmm.
I actually been watching the fight. I watched it like probably 3 times already,
Mm,
and I just been analyzing it and just going through it again and figuring out what I could do better moving forward.
right.
And I'm definitely excited for what's to come next. It was a big opportunity, and I'm just happy it worked out.
You just talked about being able to still take some things away from it. Obviously, it was a great performance, but now that you've been able to reflect on it, what are some things you've taken away from it? What's something that you feel like, okay, this I could have improved on this thing. I could have got better in this area.
A little bit of everything. It's nothing major. It's
Right.
minor little steps that I could improve on. So
Okay.
when I start back training camp, I'm gonna go over it and I'm gonna make the adjustments that I need.
All right. Well, I want to go into the lead up to that fight because this is an opportunity where, if you're looking at it from a promotion standpoint, obviously they picked you. They thought that you were going to be something that could be a quote unquote easier opponent for Mark Jeffers. He was a guy that set him to go fight Callum Simpson in his home, so on and so forth. Obviously, things don't go according to their plans for yourself. But when you take this fight, what's going through your mind? You get to go fight in the UK. You're going up against another guy that's ranked in Mark Jeffers. What was going through your mind when you took the fight?
I'm like an old school fighter for real, for real.
Right.
I fight whoever they put in front of me, and
Mm,
that's what I train. This is what I do. This is what I love. So it was nothing to me. Like I was happy for the opportunity, especially he was a good opponent. I got a chance to travel and get more exposure.
hmm
So I was all for it, for real, for real.
When you went into the fight, actually, I saw an interview and you kind of were discussing this that you didn't realize how big of an underdog you were in that fight. But did it ever click in your mind when you realized, okay, holy cow, I just upset a guy that obviously I was a massive underdog in?
Yeah, I didn't realize how big of a deal the fight was. I mean, like
Mm.
2 days before the fight, they told me it was gonna be for a belt, the WBA Continental Gold, and that just motivated me. I was cutting weight, I was getting a little tired and drained, but that just gave me a boost of energy. I was like, man, this is my time. I gotta go do this.
So you had no idea it was even going to be for a belt then?
No, I didn't know it. They told us like 2 days before the fight.
And when that all happened, then exactly what went through your mind then?
I mean, basically, I was like, man, this is what I've been waiting for. A
Mm,
10, this was my first 10 rounder, and then they put a WBA Continental Gold belt on it, which is gonna help me get ranked in the sanctioning bodies. So I
mhm.
was like, yeah, this is my moment. And I just locked in and just was like, man, I gotta seize the moment. And that's what we did.
Well, as you just said, you now have the WBA Continental Gold Belt. What does that mean to you, and what just goes through your mind that you realize that you have that belt?
It's a big step to the big belt.
Mhm.
When I started this journey, my goal was to become a world champion. And
Right.
this is a huge step in that direction. So that's what I'm taking it as. And I know something big is coming up next. So I'm just staying ready.
Now, in terms of the atmosphere, I mean, I think when you look at boxing, the UK fan base is incredible, and you got to go fight in front of them. What was that experience like?
It was great, phenomenal.
Mm,
That's what kind of stage I want to be on. I want to be on the biggest, best stages in the world.
right.
I'm that type of fighter. I give it my all. So if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it in the biggest crowds on the biggest platforms.
Mm.
So it just made me feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
When you look at the comparison between the fights you've had, obviously in America, and now obviously fighting the UK, what's some of the biggest similarities? What's some of the biggest differences? And do you prefer the UK fan base? Was that the greatest fan base you were a part of so far in your career?
I mean, no disrespect to America, but the UK fans are different.
Yeah.
Uh, it actually made me feel like I was somebody.
Mm,
Sometimes walking around America, you just kind of feel normal. There's so much greatness, and people kind of just overlook you sometimes. But when I got to the UK, I don't know if it was because I was from America, but they just greeted me and it was happy to see me. They
mm.
was asking for pictures, autographs. I was doing a little interview, so I definitely felt like a star.
I feel like that's a big thing, and I think part of the reason might be because I know obviously soccer, they call it football, is number one over there, but boxing is the second favorite sport I have to imagine. And when you talk about
Mm.
America, the culture for boxing has kind of gone down a little bit. Would you say it's an accurate statement? Like, do you feel like there's not as big of a I mean, obviously, I think football we are dominant, and that's our kind of our main sport out here. But do you feel like the culture in boxing in America is lacking right now?
I think it's picking back up. Actually, I think a
Yeah,
couple of years ago it was lacking big time. But
right.
shout out to Jake Paul. I think he's helping some of the influencers, some of the celebrities. Is boxing is starting to trend again.
Hmm. You said an interesting there. Obviously Jake Paul's fighting this weekend on Saturday, and when you talk
Mhm.
about that, obviously for boxing fans, media, it's very controversial about Jake Paul and so on and so forth. And you are a boxer. Do you feel like what he's doing for the sport is it big? Is it good for American boxing? Is it good for boxing as a whole?
I think it's good publicity.
Yeah,
It's creating another avenue for fans, different types of fans, not just the casual old school fans. He's bringing kids and other influencers, other celebrities. I feel like.
right. Well, let's get back
Yeah.
into your fight then. You're going up against Mark Jeffers. 95-95 on one of the scorecards. The other two you are coming out victorious in 96-94, 97-93. When you were hearing those scorecards get read out loud, the first one being the 95-95, what was going through your mind?
Who I was like, damn, that's close, super close. But then I looked over to my corner, and he was like, "You got this, you got this." And just gave me a boost of confidence. And I just looked up and they read out the rest of the scorecards and I won. And I was just great.
Did you feel like you were going to get the victory? Like, obviously, I'm sure you probably thought you won the fight, but did you think that with it being the UK, Mark Jeffers home, did you feel like you were going to come away with the win on that fight?
I felt it in my heart.
Okay.
Like even before the fight, I just felt like it was my moment and it was my time.
Mm.
So I had faith.
All right. Well, let's get into your story because I want people to get to know you, how you become the fighter that you are today. And so, if we head back, you grew up in New Orleans, and your father was actually a two-time kickboxing world champion. If I'm not correct, if I stand corrected there. So, I want to ask you about that component. You have somebody in your life that is a part of combat sports. How big was that for you?
It was huge. It was my foundation.
Mm,
That's what got me started in the sport. I grew up in the gym. I was always around boxing, kickboxing, or even martial arts.
right.
So I started off doing karate, then I started kickboxing, and then I started boxing because I just felt like boxing had more money in it, and also I didn't feel like taking kicks to the head and to the knees and all that crazy stuff. Even when you kick somebody, sometimes it hurts. So
Yeah.
I was like, man, I don't need that wear and tear.
So when did that settle in for yourself then? When did you feel like, you know what, boxing's my story. I'm gonna get away from the kickboxing stuff. I'm going all in on boxing now.
When I came back from Texas living with my mom, uh, I kept getting in trouble out there in Texas. It was the first time I was away from my dad. So he had to come get me. Then we moved back to New Orleans. I was around like 14. And then he opened up a gym. And then that's what I found myself. And
Mm,
then 15, when I started high school, man, I tried football and we was losing. We was getting blown out like 0-66.
all
And I
right.
already started kickboxing a little bit and I was winning. I was doing good. So I was like, man, I'm gonna just stick with the boxing. Cause
Mm,
when it's all on me, it's like basically when it's on me, I win. But when I depend on the team or this, that, and the third, we always come up short. So
Right. Now, at that point in time, if I would have known you at that point, I would have said, "Hey, at one point you're gonna be 19 and 2. You're gonna be ranked in the top 15 in the IBF." What would your reaction have been?
I would have been like, dang, sounds rough. But I knew I knew I wasn't gonna have the easy road coming up just from my background, coming from New Orleans. It's the bottom of the map. It's not that much resources, not that much opportunity out here. So I
Mm,
literally have to work for everything.
right.
And I just knew I had to stay focused and stay disciplined for the route I'm taking. And it's not necessarily gonna be easy, but this what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna dedicate myself to this.
I
And
want to
that's what
ask you
I'm
about
doing.
I want to ask about the New Orleans component there because, as you said, it's not necessarily a place known for combat sports. You know, there's some areas of the country that's obviously very highly regarded for its combat sports. Not a lot in New Orleans. Yet we see some guys. Obviously, Michael Angelo was just on the show yesterday. He's from out there. But when you look at that,
Yep.
there's not a lot of guys. Is the development and the culture and kind of the passion, the future, I should say, of boxing in New Orleans, is that growing right now, or what do you see in terms of the future out there?
I think it is growing. I think myself and a few other people in the city, just like even though he's not in the city currently, but he's from the city, Michael Angeletti, he's
Hmm.
an inspiration just like I am. And I think people are starting to follow our journey and be inspired by it. So the younger people coming behind us are taking a liking to it and seeing it's something that they can do.
Mm. You
Mhm.
talk about how it was, in a sense, even harder for yourself. It wasn't going to be the easy route because of where you came from and all that. When you look back now and you see that all the stuff you had to go through to get to this point, does it make the position you're at now feel a little bit more sweet, a little bit more, a little bit greater now? The fact that because of what you've gone through to get to this point.
Absolutely. I
Mm,
mean, when I started, I said I should be a world champion by the time I'm 30. And even though the route hasn't been easy, I'm still on track.
right. Also, in terms of just growing up in New Orleans, what was that like? Just overall, not even inside of boxing, just overall in life aspect. What was it like growing up out there?
It was rough. I mean, to
Mm,
be honest. I lost my older brother, Stephen Hemphill, in 2004. Um, Later that year, I witnessed my first murder. And then 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck. And
mm,
mind you, before this, it was like the murder capital. So like we had to be inside before the street lights came on forever. It was just so rough.
mm.
And then I grew up in the hood. Um, I don't come from money or anything like that. So and then like I said, Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005. And then we had to evacuate the city. I evacuated the city with my mom, and we relocated in Arlington, Texas. And then, like I said before, I was getting in trouble, and I just didn't have the proper guidance.
Okay.
Um, so then my dad came and got me a couple of years later, and I moved back to New Orleans. And then
Mm.
that's when I really started focusing on boxing. I was like, before I take a chance in the streets, I'd rather take a chance in the ring.
You know, that's a huge point you just mentioned there. I've had so many guys on before say, you know what, there's so many guys that from where they grew up in that go down the wrong path and they don't end up pursuing what God gifted them with the ability to do. You were in that choice and you said, you know what, I'm going to go away from this other opportunity. I'm going to go pursue what I'm passionate about, something, a skill, a trait that I have. Why is that
Mhm.
critical? And when you look back at it, the message that you could say to so many other people out there, why is what you did the right choice?
Simply to me, just because I feel like it saved my life, and also I feel like it just boxing chose me for real, for real. That's how I
Mm,
feel about my dad having his background and then his influence on me to get into the craft and to the family business. Um, it was almost inevitable for me to pick it up,
mm,
especially with my surroundings and the way I saw, things happening around me. Like I said, I lost my brother in 2004. And then when I was in high school and I was starting to take off as an amateur in the boxing, a lot of my peers was going to jail, getting sentenced for felonies. A couple of them was getting murdered.
Mm.
So it just kind of refocused me and let me know, like, man, I don't need to be going this route. I need to stay focused on what I'm doing, and that's combat sports.
Another aspect about that is you went through so many things. I'm not sure exactly where you admitted because were you all the Katrina stuff you were about what in your early like 10 years old, 8 years old or something around then?
I
And
was
so
9.
nine, okay, yeah, I was trying to do the math there, but when you look at those things, obviously nobody ever wants to go through any of those circumstances. In hindsight, now, how would you say those things have helped grow you into the man, the person that you are today?
It taught me resiliency. Like
Mm,
basically, things might happen, but you got to learn how to weather the storm. Literally, you
right.
know. So I think that made me tougher as a person. It made me just resilient. For real, for real. Life is gonna throw punches at you, but you got to roll with them.
Hmm. In terms of Hurricane Katrina, that's obviously one of the biggest catastrophes we've had in American history. You are someone that's always gonna be a part of your story now. You've had experience what that was that impacted you directly. When you look back on that, what was it like having to be a part of that?
I was just so young. It kind of
Okay,
was a shock to me, and because I was young, I didn't really understand how serious it was, but I
gotcha.
did because I saw it firsthand. Like I witnessed my mom having to guzzle gas just so we could get to like Baton Rouge and to the next city and to the next city. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
all the pumps were shut down. I remember National Guards turning us around and be like, "You can't go this route." I remember and having to loot in different stores just so we could get enough food to eat for the day or two, so
Mm,
it was a lot. I remember getting Red Cross vouchers,
right.
but now I look back at it and I'm like, man, that was a lot.
Well, I just have to ask you this. Your story is one of the best stories I've had on here before. Have you ever considered writing a book at some point in your life?
Man, it was funny. I was talking to one of my clients at the gym today, and it
Mhm.
was like, you should write a book. I was like, yeah, I think that'll be later on in my life though. Once I complete my journey in a
Right,
sport, I feel like.
for sure.
Yeah, so I think that'll be something good for sure.
I love it, man. Well, let's hop into then when you started officially going all on boxing. You go through your amateur career. You had quite a bit of accomplishments there. Take us through that though. What was your amateur career like?
My amateur career was very interesting to say the least.
Right.
It was just me and my dad. A lot of times in the gym training, he showed me everything I know for real, from the jab to the footwork to defense. He used to throw me in there with grown men when I was like 15, 14 years old.
Mm,
And I just used to have to survive or just fight. So it taught me how to fight for real at the end of the day, and how to have heart. So that's a big part of the sport. And then I took that into the amateurs. I had a couple of fights locally in my city at Friday night fights. Shout out to Mike Tater. Um and then I was like, I need more. I need to see more different styles and stuff like that. So then I started going to tournaments. I won my
mm,
first tournament, which was title nationals. Um then I went to ringside and I won that as a novice. And then I started going to the USA boxing nationals. And
mhm.
I think I competed at 4 of them, and then I was the runner up at like 3 of them.
Right.
And coming from my background, that was a lot to accomplish for real. Because I used to get in the brackets and nobody knew who I was. The judges was like probably like, this guy ain't gonna make it. But I always found myself getting deeper and deeper into the bracket, and I wind up in the semifinals or something like that.
Mm.
Um So it taught me a lot. I got a chance to compete with some of the best in the country.
When you look at your career in the amateur ranks, or maybe even the pro ranks, when did you start to feel like, you know what, I have a bright future in the sport. I'm going to be a guy that could possibly be a world champion one day. I could be a world championship contender. When did some of those things start to click in your mind?
Well, that started before I started going to tournaments. I
Okay.
started having those type of thoughts when I started, just because I knew I had the foundation. My dad is a great instructor.
Hmm.
Um, he has a lot of experience from boxing in the army and from his kickboxing background and martial arts. I kind of get a lot of my style from martial arts, and people probably don't realize that. So it makes me unique. And I just knew if I know if I stay focused and I stay on the right path and stay disciplined and dedicated, I can go far. And I keep that mentality today.
I also want to ask you about your own fitness, Jim, because you talk about your dad having his. When did you decide to say, you know what, I want to create Safely Fitness. I want this to be a part of my career, my story as well?
Well, obviously, I think he probably had a big influence in that.
Hmm.
But my dad had double hip surgery back in 2021, I want to say.
Okay.
And that was a big setback because he had to close his gym down and recover. So we started working out of other people's gyms here and there. And I eventually wanted to get our spot back. There's nothing like having your own space.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to create my own spot, my own space to where I could work in private if I need. I also work with clients because uh boxing doesn't necessarily pay my bills still
Right.
to this day. So I rather train people in the sport that I do. Like I train a lot of white collar people, people that work, desk jobs, or even, blue collar or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
It helps pays my bills and take care of my family. I rather train those people than I have to wash dishes like I did back in 2018. I rather keep it all in the sport. So that's part of the reason why I have my own gym and to uplift the next generation coming up behind me.
When you look at post boxing, is being a trainer or coach, is that something that you want to go all in on? Do you have other aspirations, or what do you want to do post boxing?
Uh, yeah, I do want to give back once I'm done with my career. Once it's all said and done,
Right.
I do want to help build the world champion
All
one
right.
day, but I don't want to train the whole world necessarily. You know what I mean? I
Right.
think I'd be picky with that.
Okay. The other thing I have to ask you about, you just talk about the fact that you're washing dishes before, even when you were in the pro range trying to grow up in that aspect. And so many fans, they don't know the backstory of boxing. Obviously, the ceiling for boxing, you can make a lot of money in the sport. The bottom portion, when you're starting to get going, obviously, it's not very easy in the financial paychecks there. How do you stay so locked in the sport and pursue your dreams, even when you know that the paychecks are not coming in the way you would dream of?
I mean, it's simple. You really just gotta want it that bad.
Mm,
You gotta be willing to go through the fire.
right,
Uh, I don't know about other people, but I know it wasn't gonna be easy. Especially the way I grew up, and it's like, do I want to do that for the rest of my life, or do I want to do it a portion of my life and create a legacy doing what I'm doing now,
mm,
traveling,
mm,
competing, beating people, um, and just doing what I love and what I'm passionate about. So uh, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, and that's
right.
simply what I was doing to
Let's hop
make
in.
ends meet and to support my career at the same time.
Well, let's hop into your pro career now. You go through this jump, you made the decision to go pro. Why did you feel like at that point, I believe you're 23 years old then, why did you feel like that was the time to go make the pro jump?
Because I was only getting older and I felt like I had enough experience at that point to
Okay.
make the jump.
As you go through that career, the first fight I want to get into is you get a massive fight, David Stevens, in 2023. When you talk about that night, obviously it's your first career loss at that point in time. Can you take us to that night and just what you remember from that performance?
It was another great fight, I think. I laid it all. I laid it all in the ring for real, for real. David Stevens is a good fighter.
Right.
He was the better man that night, and I remember feeling like that. Like I never want to felt like that again. Like especially the way it ended. It was a knockout. So I never saw myself getting stopped like that. So it was heartbreaking for me. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I got back on a horse and I'm still riding.
And that's why I wanted to ask about the loss aspect because for so many guys, that loss can be a very detrimental thing for themselves and not always career wise. In my opinion, we've seen a lot of great guys have lost and still come back. But from the mental standpoint, a lot of guys experience that first loss and they don't bounce back the way they probably could have. For yourself, how did you bounce back from that loss?
I believe in myself a hundred
Mm,
percent. I didn't forget why I started,
right.
and um just because one thing don't go my way doesn't mean the world ends. And I'm not a quitter by any
Mm.
means. And probably my background being from New Orleans, the resiliency, like I said, New Orleans has taught me in the culture. Um, I'm not a quitter, and I never will be.
Then let's fast forward. You get another opportunity against William Skull in 2024. When you look back at that night, what's your thoughts on that performance?
Again, that was a loss, and it
Right.
wasn't a good feeling. Um, it was a lot going on at that period of time in my life. Uh, that fight week leading up to the fight, I wound up catching the flu. I was training
Mm.
in New York, and I really didn't feel too well going into the fight. But to stay, I still made the weight, and I went through with it. And he was the better man that night. And my girl was pregnant at the time with my baby, so it was kind of devastating for me. But again, I'm not a quitter,
Mm.
and I got back on a horse and still, I'm still riding.
Well, the reason I wanted to ask about him is that when you talk about William Skull, obviously he's coming off of a very interesting, to say the least, performance against Canelo Alvarez, and that's now put him in a position where he's just a few spots in front of you in the IBF now. Is that a fight that you'd want you to get back and possibly make a rematch against him win?
Definitely, I like a rematch with both of them at some point when
Okay.
it makes sense. Cause I feel like I could beat both of them. There was
Mm.
just the better man that night. I could compete with the best in the world, and I believe in myself, and that's what I know.
Specifically with William Skull, I guess you could even throw in the David Stevens because he's coming off a win just a couple of days ago as well. Have you
Mhm.
had any discussions? Would those be possible fights that we could see in any time near in the near future?
100%. Anything is possible at this point, especially with me being ranked and those guys are ranked. We could make those fight happen. I just don't know when.
Right. If you could pick one or the other to fight next, if that was if everything obviously financially everything else made sense, which one would you want the most?
Whichever one made the most sense, I guess. Whichever one is ranked higher, whichever one would be the biggest payday, I guess.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I also wanted to ask for another opportunity you had a little bit ago. That was to join Canelo and Munguia in training camp in California. Take us that experience. What was that like?
Man, that was great. That was something I felt like I manifested because I always said I wanted to go to like world champion training camp and work with him.
Mm.
And I got the call from my manager and he asked me if I wanted to go spar with Canelo. And I'm like, Canelo, you serious? And sure, I was like, I'm on my way. And I spent 5 weeks with those guys. I really went up there to spar with Canelo because he was fighting Skull. And I guess they must have heard about the fight or something like that
Right.
and seen my style. So I got up there and started sparring with Canelo for the first couple of weeks. And then Coach Eddie Reynoso asked me if I spar with Magia too, because they could use my style. And then
Mm,
I started sparring with Magia too.
okay.
1 week I sparred 4 days straight, then the next week I sparred 6 days straight. It was like Magia Canelo, Magia Canelo, Magia Canelo. So it was like the longest week of my life, but I got through it. That was something that I wanted. And I was like, I'm here. I need the work, I need the experience. So I feel like that definitely helped elevate my game, working with those boxing superstars.
Specifically about Canelo, what's the biggest lesson that you learned, the biggest piece of advice that he gave you throughout your time with him?
Uh, he kind of showed me a little bit how he set up certain shots. That was cool. And then the most biggest thing that I learned from the camp was that I can compete with some of the best fighters in the world. I
Mhm.
am on that level. So that was a big thing to take away. Because
Well,
some guys get sent home just because they can't handle it or
right.
whatever the case may be. But I was able to make it through the whole camp, and I was the only one in camp sparring with both of them. Because Magia had his set sparring partners and Canelo had his set sparring partners. Now I
Right.
was the only one going back and forth every day. It was like, man. So we got it done though.
So would you say when you reflect back on that time, that maybe the biggest thing you took away then was the fact that you almost grew in confidence knowing that, okay, we're talking about one of the greatest fighters of our generation, maybe even ever in Canelo. You're talking about another world champion in Munguia. You were able to stick with those guys. Do you feel like overall the biggest thing maybe you could say was that you grew in confidence knowing that you can compete with the best?
Exactly.
Right. Well, let's head into your future plans now. You're ranked in the top 15 in the IBF. WBA, obviously, I'm sure they could probably rank you in the near future as well, pretty high in the top 15 potentially as well. What's next for you?
Yes.
When can we possibly see you back in the ring?
Um I'm thinking I'll be back in the fall. I got a call from my manager yesterday. They got a couple of possibilities up on the table right now. It's
Okay.
kind of hard for me to talk about it right now because nothing is final,
Right.
but they are big fights, big possibilities. So I'm expecting to be back in the ring September, no later than October. So um, I just want y'all to stay tuned.
When you talk about potentially big fight, obviously I know you can't necessarily list names or whatnot, but is there just guys that would be in the top 15? Like, would that be the fight we see you guys, you
Yes,
fighting someone in the top 15?
yes,
All right.
definitely.
And when you look at everybody there, obviously you have the IBF, you're currently ranked. And as I said, WBA, I'm sure you're going to get ranked a lot higher when the new rankings come out. When you talk about both those different branches right there, is there one you specifically want? Does not really matter to you, or which route would you want to go if you could choose?
Uh, I mean, honestly, I'm not ducking no smoke for real, for real. So whichever one just made the most sense, or whichever one presented itself, um, that's the one I'll take
All
for real,
right.
for real.
Out of everybody at super middleweight, there's a lot of good guys obviously there. When you talk about the depth, Diego Pacheco obviously throwing name. Obviously, we know Canelo's up there at the top. But you talk about Diego Pacheco, William Skull, Eubank Jr. is probably going to be in the mix now. Saras, obviously Callum Simpson, so on and so forth. Munguia. Is there something if you could pick anybody that you would want to fight, or is it more so like you said, you just want anybody that's going to be available that makes the most sense?
That's where I'm at with it. Like, I'm
Okay,
not picking and choosing for real, because all those guys are good up there. I
right,
could be trying to look at one guy's weakness, and it could be something totally different when I get in the ring in there. So,
right.
uh, what I'm gonna do is just stay in the gym, stay focused, and work on the things I need to work on, and I'll be prepared for any one of those guys.
All right. Well, I got to ask you then. If we look at your goals for the next year, year and a half, if we talk about year and a half, that'd be setting yourself up to go heading into 2027 now. Where do you see yourself at that point in time? What do you see yourself accomplishment wise, goal wise? Like, where do you see yourself? If we were talking 2027, where are you standing in the boxing rankings, the boxing world?
In 2027, I believe I'll be a world champion by then.
All right. I love it. Well, Sean, I have one final question for you. It's a question like wrapping up each and every single interview with, and that's talking about your legacy. Eventually, you will put down the gloves and move on from boxing. And when that day does happen, what do you want to be remembered for what you have accomplished both inside and outside of that ring?
Uh, I want people to be like, this guy said it, he was gonna do everything he said he was gonna do. I want them to
Mm.
look back and be like, he was a man of his word and he kept his promise. And I want my family to be proud of me for all my accomplishments. And I want to be able to inspire the younger generation and help them see that they can make it too.
I love it. Well, Sean, I appreciate you for taking time to come on today, man. It's been an honor and a blessing having you on here. And I cannot wait to see what God's got next for you, man. Of
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it a lot.
course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.
God bless. Peace.
I appreciate you guys all for tuning in to the interview. I will get that clipped up, edited out, and then posted on my YouTube channel here in just a couple of hours after the show gets wrapped up. I'm going to go on a short break for about 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then I'll hop right back in and we'll get into the remainder of today's show. May God bless you guys all, and I'll see you guys very shortly. Welcome back to the SchuZ Show, everybody. I am your host, Zach, SchuZ Shoemaker. At this time of the show, I just want to let everybody know that if you have any comments, any topic ideas, or things that you want me to discuss on today's show, leave it in the chat, and I'll make sure to address that as I go throughout the duration of today's show. With that being said, though, we're going to get into a fight preview. We are now roughly 10-ish hours away from Liam Paro, Jonathan Navarro main event going down in Australia. So I'm going to break down the two main event and then the co-main event on the fight card today, or tomorrow morning, I should say, and we'll be getting into that right away. Let's hop right into it now. Liam Paro versus Jonathan Navarro, welterweight main event going down in Australia, Queensland to be specific, in just a few hours. Liam Paro is 25-1 with 15 KOs. He is returned to action back home to face the American underdog Jonathan Navarro, who is 18-1 with 9 KOs. This will be a 10-round welterweight headliner. All right, let's set the storyline up for this one. I feel like there's a lot of mixed feelings about Liam Paro. I am someone of the belief that Liam Paro is a good fighter, but not necessarily that world-level fighter. And what I mean by that is that there are sometimes styles makes fights. And coincidentally, we had two guys in different weight classes that had very similar stories. Who am I referring to? I'm referring to one, Liam Paro, that went and fought Subriel Matias. Obviously, Liam Paro put on masterclass, and the styles make fights. That style did not work very well for Matias, and in that result was the Liam Paro becoming world champion. But then we saw him go out there and go and face Richardson Hitchens. Not a very competitive fight either. Hitchens did his job and became world champion, took that belt before he could even defend it. Same story happened if we look back in the past year when Rayo went and fought Pitbull Cruz. Those two guys went after it. Pitbull Cruz got literally embarrassed, and then Rayo goes down to has his very first defense of his belt. And in that fight, Gary Antoine Russell has his way with him and dominates him. You know, two very similar storylines that happen within a short time span. And this is what I feel about Liam Paro. He is a good fighter, but I do not think he's one of those guys that is a top, let's call it 4 or 5 guy in his weight class. But don't get that twisted, though. He's still a good fighter, as I said. So let's preview what we're going to see in his return in his first fight since losing his belt. He is a guy that will be making his first defense, as I said, since he lost his title to Richardson Hitchens in December of last year. He has now defeated Subriel Matias, Montana Love, back-to-back upsets to get to the point he was at. As for Navarro, former Golden Boy prospect, he's the guy that's also coming off of a loss. Paro is a southpaw, sharp jab, excellent timing, and he thrives in technical battles, while Navarro is an orthodox, compact puncher and very aggressive. What do I see happening in this fight? Well, for the first time in 3 years, Paro will be returning home and fighting Queensland. He's going to want to rebuild himself up with this fight, and Navarro is the underdog guy in this fight. If I were to say this fight, I expect that Paro will win. I think his technicality, I think the way he fights, his style, will allow him to go out there and be victorious in this fight. But don't get it twisted. Navarro does have upset potential in this fight. I don't feel like this is going to be a great fight, but Navarro does have, albeit a slight chance, to go out there and pull off an upset tonight in the fight. The co-main event, Liam Wilson will be making his return against Jimenez in a super featherweight co-main event. Queensland, Liam Wilson will be making his home return. He is 15-3 with 8 KOs in his career, fighting the Argentinian, who is 22-1 with 4 KOs. This will be for the vacant WBO international title. Wilson is regarded as one of the most gutsy fighters we have out there, and especially when we reflect back on his fight against Mario Navarrete in 2023. That is what's given him his biggest name, I'd say. That's been his biggest fight to his career at this point. But he has since come back with 2 bounce-back big wins. Jimenez is a technical boxer, very high work rate, and he's also on a 5-fight win streak since his 1 loss in Italy. Wilson is an orthodox, strong body puncher, good timing, while Jimenez is a volume puncher, very slick movement, and he lacks knockout threat power, though. Let's hop into this now. Liam Wilson is a good fighter. He's fought at the peak of boxing. He's fought Emmanuel Navarrete. He wants to return back to that form, or at least be in a contender form, and he's going to be doing so on his home soil. That is why I believe in this fight, that although Jimenez has only lost 1 time in his career, I believe that when we come out tomorrow night and I talk about this fight and recap, Wilson will come out with decision win and come out with a victory in this fight. That's what I see happening. There's going to be a few other fights happening on this card, but that is what I want to say about the fight card preview for what's going to happen in Queensland, Australia in just about roughly 10 hours. Let's hop over to some boxing topics now to wrap up today's show. First and foremost is a topic about Brian Norman Jr. It appears that we have some negotiations going on right now. Bill Haney's going out there on X, making his moves as he likes to do quite often. And in the midst of this, he's starting to throw out the idea and the possibility of a fight against Brian Norman Jr. Brian Norman Jr. is coming off of his massive performance against Jin Sasaki with the KO of the year just last week. I think this is the perfect fight to make. Devin Haney wanted the Teofimo Lopez fight, and what I said all along was that fight made the most sense. Teo ducked Devin Haney for one reason or another, and now we are in a position where Devin Haney had nobody. But you know what's funny about this? Originally, Devin Haney was going to have a fight against Teofimo Lopez. Somebody ducked him, and now, in hindsight, Devin Haney is going to possibly be the one to get a world title shot. And I believe that's what he deserves as well. Obviously, a lot of people will say that's controversial. A lot of people are not very high on Devin Haney. I get it. But Devin Haney still has accomplished a lot to this point, and I feel like this would be a great test for him. Now, will it come out victorious in that fight? That's to be determined. What I will say is that anybody that watched the hook that Brian Norman Jr. threw to give the knockout of the year against Jin Sasaki, yeah, somebody does lack ability to defend the hook. And that could be a massive problem for Devin Haney in this fight. However, on paper, this is a fine fight. It would be for the 147 title. And the deal behind this, though, is that Devin Haney is not currently ranked in the WBO. So questions quickly emerged earlier today. Is that a possibility? What would happen? How do we make that happen? And the man behind the WBO, Gustavo Olivieri, he came out and said, listen, if this is the case, he will grant Haney a ranking according to that. I guess what he said. So he'll be granted a ranking in the WBO. Therefore, that fight could likely happen. And I believe it's the fight to make. It makes perfect sense. It would be a great fight to have happen. If Brian Norman wants to go traditionally against other top WBO currently guys, you could fight a guy like Echo Estiman and those type of guys, which I would like to see. But a domestic fight, Devin Haney, Brian Norman Jr. would be a great fight to make have happen. And also, think about it from this side as well. The winner of that fight would become or even solidify themselves as a star. Brian Norman Jr. just made a massive step towards becoming a superstar in boxing. He is probably one more signature performance away from becoming a legitimate superstar in boxing. You could argue he's a star right now, but that superstar image for him, that would come if he has a knockout performance against Devin Haney. And for Devin Haney, if Devin Haney can turn back the clock a little bit and have a masterful performance against Brian Norman Jr., become world champion at 147, that is going to reflect largely on him and show that he is a guy that legitimately would be a big-time threat at 147 and could possibly get a stardom back again. So that's what I want to say about that. But the way I'm going to wrap up today's show, unless there's any more comments that are thrown into the chat, is this. On Friday, we're just a couple days out, and I'll give a full preview of the fight when that time comes. We are about ready to have Deontay Wilder return to boxing. He's returning in Wichita, Kansas, against Tower Herndon in a fight that is critical. And so I pose this question to everybody. Is this fight the most must-win fight of Deontay Wilder's career? Let me make sure this point is given very accurately right now. Is this fight the most must-win fight of Deontay Wilder's career? That's interesting. He's had massive fights. Obviously none greater than the Tyson Fury trilogy. But has he ever been in this position where it is a must-win for his career? I don't think so, not to the extent at least. Deontay Wilder has been taken for granted, in my opinion, by the American people. We look at the heavyweight scene right now, it's an absolute train wreck. We have a few guys that are only competitive right now because of their names. But nobody's a legitimate threat at the heavyweight division in America right now. The youth movement is struggling. Richard Torres Jr., Jared Anderson, yeah, sure, they're fine, but they're not going to compete with the likes of Mosi Toma anytime soon. The American heavyweight division is a train wreck right now, and the future is only going to get dimmer and dimmer as more and more guys continue to go out there and pursue the likes of basketball and football. The heavyweight division in America is struggling. Deontay Wilder was the face of the American heavyweight division for his entire career. And now we're in a position where we don't know who the face is. And so when I reflect on Deontay Wilder, what I think we need to recognize is that we took him for granted for way too long. Yeah, his record was maybe padded. Yes, all these different things happen. Regardless of what the fact is, Deontay Wilder was a big-time heavyweight fighter, something that we have not seen now in the current present time, and I don't know if we're ever going to see it again. To the extent where I might even just say that maybe, just maybe, Deontay Wilder was the last great American heavyweight. We're in a bad position right now for American heavyweights. I think we took him for granted. I think when we reflect back on that, American fans are going to look back, for those that did not want to respect Deontay Wilder, are probably going to be a little bit baffled and upset that they did not take that time more special and embrace what happened. Back to the question, though. Is this the most must-win fight for Deontay Wilder? I believe it is. Because, listen, at the end of the day, not only does Deontay Wilder have to go out there and perform on Friday night, he is a necessity of a devastating, I mean devastating, knockout blow in this fight. If Deontay Wilder does not go out there and have a signature Wilder KO in this fight, I don't know where he goes from here. It's not just good enough to have just a simple win. I mean, first of all, let's be honest. Deontay Wilder winning by points on Friday is very slim. We're not going to probably see that. He's never really won by points. That's not what he does. Deontay Wilder needs to go out there on Friday night and have an excellent highlight reel Deontay Wilder throwback KO. And it's not against anybody good. But listen, from a promotional standpoint, if Deontay Wilder goes out and fulfills that dream and gets that massive KO, promoters can go out there and say he's back. The media can go out there and say he's back. Is he actually back? No, he faced another trash can. But you can say that from a promotional standpoint. If Wilder does not create that monumental KO on Friday night, he's not going to land that big fight that he's hoping to have. Ideally, when I look at his game plan right now, it's this fight on Friday night, and then a step-up fight most likely happening by the end of this year. And if that goes according to plan, he could go out there and have a massive fight, maybe even against Anthony Joshua. But all those things are going to be dashed and cut in half and not going to happen if Wilder does not go out there and have a career-defining knockout reel, highlight reel KO on Friday night. It is a necessity. Never before has he been in this position to this extent. Even if this goes opposite for him and he possibly loses this fight, it's the last time Wilder will ever step foot in a ring. If he does not win Friday night, his career is over. And if he doesn't even have a knockout career highlight reel KO on Friday, his career will definitely be in the balance. And that's just a fact. So yes, my answer to that question is that Friday night's performance and fight for Deontay Wilder is the most must-win fight of his career. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, in my opinion. He needs to win, and he needs to win in dominating fashion when he steps back in that ring in Wichita, Kansas on Friday night. I will be giving a full preview of that fight card and all the other fights happening on Friday or Thursday, possibly even. But with that being said, I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in to today's show. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of you guys' Tuesday. I will be back here tomorrow. Another later show will be at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. May God bless you guys all. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of you guys' Tuesday. I will see you guys tomorrow. And with that being said, SchuZ out. God bless you guys.